Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unserious University. Today is episode 25. I want to say thank you guys for being here and thank you for your patience with me as I take a little bit longer to roll out episodes. I'm going to dive into that really quickly and a little bit of the structure I have moving forward, and then we'll do the intro for the episode, and then we'll get into the meat of it. I put myself in a position, and I may have touched a little bit on this last time, but I put myself in a position where I felt like I was committed to a overly rigid schedule that was, for better or for worse, turning this into a chore. And I have since taken a step back and really tried to hone in on why I'm doing this and why I love it and what it feels like to do it the right way. So, you may notice as I'm figuring things out, I'll have my laptop right next to me because I have done this episode a bit differently. So, I wanted to record the other day, but didn't get to it because this time I actually kind of wrote a little bit of an essay on today's topic and turned it into some bullet points, and I'll have some overall structure to what I'm talking about on this episode. And I really want to see if that feels like I'm putting out something of better quality for you guys. Prior to this, my main strategy was kind of mulling over the topic the day of, maybe a little bit more pondering on it the hour before, going in with a general idea and then winging it. I still want it to be able to retain a lot of the free-form, relaxed feeling, but it doesn't feel like I'm giving it my all. And so I want to take steps closer to putting in real effort for you guys, making something meaningful and not just half-assed. So I will have some notes for this episode that I will bounce off of. Hopefully, from your guys' perspective, it doesn't feel any different. It feels natural. But from mine, I'm going to do my best to, make it a little more professional. So first things first, we have a new, for those watching the video, we have a new visual setup. I have set the camera and lights up in my room because I feel like it is a better environment for me mentally to be able to record and get my ideas out. And I think, quite honestly, it looks better. I invested some money and time into my room over the years, and definitely more lately. And I feel like it makes for a good setting. So I definitely want to know if you guys like this, prefer this or not. Some feedback would be cool. Of course, I'm like sitting crisscross applesauce on my bed, but this is the experimental stage. I think the other side of my room that you can't see right now is also very aesthetically pleasing, and I have a couple more adjustments to make on that end, but we might flip the camera around 180 entirely, and you might see the other end of my room, and we might work with that. I don't know. But I don't want to make today's intro too long. Today's episode, number 25, as I pull up my notes, is titled Love Was Never Enough. I went into this knowing I wanted to do an episode on my idea of love. And I'm not some pessimistic cynic, I promise. I just think that the modern perception of what love is, for the most part, incorrect. And a lot of people nowadays have adopted an idea of love that will end up hurting them. And if they don't learn from it, hurting them multiple times. So the overall structure of what I want this episode to be is I'm going to first go into what love is, in my opinion. That's all this whole fucking podcast is, right? It's just my opinion. Then I'll go into what I think love is not. And then we'll hit on a final third point of, once you've acknowledged what love really is, what role does it actually serve in your life? And how you can still love, if that makes sense. And make it work for you in the best way. This episode particularly is on the romantic idea of love. I know that love is used very universally, platonically, towards ideas, concepts, art. But for this, I'm speaking much more towards relationships and the romantic kind. So, with that being said, let's get straight into it and kick off episode 25 of Unserious University. Thank you, and catch you there. Kicking off here, I want to acknowledge that I understand that the title, Love Never Was Enough, is clickbaity. I do mean it. I'm not saying this, I'm not putting this title just to hook your attention, just to add to the cacophony of rage bait and whatnot. I really do believe that love is not and never was enough. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think acknowledging that has led me to more success in relationships and a happier life, both while committed to a person or while single, than I was prior to coming to terms with what I think love is. And so we're going to start with what love really is. Love is, first and foremost, as you know, an emotion. But there is a reason why it is, for lack of a better term, the most popular emotion ever, if that makes sense. I mean, you look around, you look at art, you look at music, you look at anything that inspires people, and a huge, notable, overwhelming majority of art is rooted in love, in romanticism, in a direct bond and connection with your partner. I remember the first time I ever really felt in love, and it wasn't an all at once thing. It wasn't like in the movies where I looked at someone and fell in love on the spot and just knew I was in love and moved with this epiphany now locked into my brain. My first relationship ever, which most of you listening are friends, so most of you already know a lot about it, but was actually rooted in a long-term friendship that I had. And then that friendship kind of stepped over the line and turned into love. The thing that kind of made me realize it was love was the actual reciprocation of it. My prior experiences up until that point as a teenager, because my first time falling in love, I was 19. My prior experiences were, for the most part, infatuation. I had experienced connections with people that I thought at first was love, and then only realizing in hindsight was much more one-sided or not healthy or not actually fully experienced when in person. It was my intense crush / infatuation that I had on a person or with a person that never actually was allowed to fully bloom. And only once I got into my first real serious relationship did I experience what love was like. And oh my God, it hit me like a fucking bus. I remember like when I first acknowledged that I was actually in love, because of course you're a teenager, you're scared, you're nervous. You don't really want to acknowledge it because acknowledging it means that there's a chance that this person isn't in love with you, but you can tell You can tell the difference between one-sided and a reciprocated bond. Scary nonetheless. And I remember one of my first thoughts was, this is why every fucking song is written about this feeling. This is literally heroin. Like, it's literally an opioid that's being injected into my brain that I feel a physical sensation. I remember being this just like puppy dog 19-year-old and being completely happy with just like sitting with my person and like staring into their face for godly amounts of ungodly amounts of time. Like, we weren't doing anything. We were just existing really close to each other. And that was enough. Like, if you had a brain scan of my neurons at the time, they would look like 4th of July, and nothing was even happening. And obviously, I say first relationship because here I am, a single man. It didn't work out, and I had 2 relationships after, which also didn't work out. And I bring these up because I also don't believe that your first love is this untouchable thing that you'll never reach again, because, to be completely honest, the other 2 relationships, I fell in love very deeply and very very, very deeply and very hard. And both times, again, love completely overtook me. I was obsessed. I could not see any fathomable outcome where this didn't work out, where I wasn't absolutely willing to fight to the death for this person to make what we had work. And that's because at the end of the day, it is an emotion, a very powerful one. And I guess a huge reason why I titled Love Was Never Enough, Love Is Not Enough, is because if it was enough, you would only need to fall in love once. If it was all you needed, it would work every time. The first person that ever captured your heart would be the last, and no matter how tough the time, and no matter how thin your patience, you would stick through it. Anyone who has any form of observation ability knows that that's not the case. My first relationship was 4.5 years, and we did not end our relationship infatuated with each other. Very much the opposite. We had both acknowledged, after rekindling a friendship after some time past the breakup, we had both acknowledged that the relationship could have ended notably sooner, and we would have still been in the same position we were in at the time. We still would have been fine. And so I guess I can also speak from a perspective of what falling out of love feels like. And I really want to preface this entire episode, because I'm speaking about if I'm going to talk about my experience with love, I'm going to talk about my prior relationships. And if I'm going to talk about my prior relationships, I'm going to be talking about specific people. And I want to say, first and foremost, I'm not on bad terms with anyone that I have been in a relationship with, and I hold no ill will or bad opinion of anyone. And also, I will never be speaking from a perspective that I was perfect or I did everything right. Anyone who signs up to date a 19-year-old, even if you are also 19, is going to suffer. To just be so blunt. You don't have yourself figured out at 19. I have people that I know who are 10 years older than me who aren't even close to figuring themselves out. And I'm sure they figured out even less when they were 19. So all that to say, when I talk about the good and the bad in love, know that I was not a contributor to only the good. I also had my fair share of sins, of fuck ups, of things I would have done differently. I remember coming across like old photos and even old screenshots of text messages from prior relationships and just cringing at the shit that I was saying. Like, oh my God, I am a different man. I mean, I was a boy. God, and 27-year-old me would not date 19-year-old me, if that makes sense. I did not have it figured out. All that to say, let's talk about what falling out of love feels like. It never feels real. You'll be in denial for it, the fact that you have fallen out of love. You will be in denial the entire time. Even through the breakup, you will be in denial unless you are breaking up literally because you've acknowledged that you've fallen out of love. You'll probably just, off of what feels common, you'll probably find another also equally valid reason to break up and break up because of that. But then after the dust has settled and you have healed and time has passed and you can look back, can you recognize that you fell out of love? Maybe even while you were still in the relationship. And the experience that is like is the reason it puts you in denial the entire time is because you still love that person. You have love for that person, but you are not in love with that person. And those are very different things. I have love for my friends. I have love for people who are borderline acquaintances. I am not in love with them. I would not lay down and gaze into their eyes for an hour straight and my neurons would be fireworks. But that's the difference between having love and being in love. And so you very well might be in or have experienced being in a relationship where you are not in love with the person anymore. You just love them because that's what it means to be human. And that's a scary thing because even if someone tells you, there's a huge chance you won't acknowledge it. And you get there most of the time through, and this is again me speaking from experience, because first and foremost, I've never been cheated on. I've never been dumped or ghosted in the way that I know a lot of people that I know have been. And I can't speak from experience on what I would react like if I got cheated on. All 3 breakups that I've gone through were respectful, mutual, and we were still able to be on speaking terms after, for the most part. So here's my perspective. We got there through a death of 1,000 cuts. It was not one particular thing. It was constant, repeated behavior on both ends where we were both letting each other down on what we were expecting out of the other person. Now, you can have improper expectations, but that's really hard to figure out on your own and while in a relationship. I didn't realize how much I was fucking up after my first breakup until after the breakup, like way after, and then revisiting some things mentally or even with my phone, finding old screenshots, like I was fucking up. And so my biased perspective of why the relationship ended shifted to a more grounded, realistic place. But nonetheless, I will also not say that my partner was perfect. I'm sure they also wouldn't uh, say that they were. And so you would go through things where you would ask something of someone and they would not do it for you. Or you had an idea of who this person was because they put on, and now I'm speaking generally, but you had an idea of who a person was because they put on a persona or a mask on the early stages of the relationship to win you over, as 99% of people do. I'm no fucking better. But you put on the goal is to be as close to reality as you can. Maybe you're a little bit more charismatic, but let's not fucking lie, you know? Nonetheless, they paint a picture of who they think you want. They paint a picture of who they believe you want them to be. And then over time, as you get comfortable and the grooves of habit start forming, you realize, oh, you're not as kind and patient and understanding as you were on month 1 when we're on month 10. How unfair, right? And all of this is wisdom gained through dating over the years, figuring out who you are and what you expect and all of these things. But the dust settles, people show you who they really are. And if this person is not fit or ready or mature enough for a healthy relationship, they will make it very clear very quickly after the dust settles. Very quickly doesn't mean fucking week 3. But I don't know, sometimes you can recognize a red flag. I don't want every statement I have to have a caveat, but this is a tricky episode to record, so bear with me. And I think that even if perhaps you haven't experienced some of the things that I'm speaking about, maybe you can view relationships very close to you, whether that be your parents, your siblings, your friends, and you can recognize certain patterns or core truths about love when looking at those relationships. And maybe you see the proper function of love, or maybe you see the dysfunction of love. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest golden truths that I have recognized from my years of dating and being in a relationship and being in love is that being in love does not mean you have found your person that is going to last forever. It does not mean you have even found someone good for you. It just means you're in love. And it makes you admit that you can fall in love with the wrong person very easily, very strongly, very passionately. When writing my notes for this episode, I wrote how if I were to get my hands on a time machine and go back in time to each of my 3 relationships and go to where the absolute zenith, the absolute peak of my passion and love for this person was, where it was borderline infatuation, I mean just complete obsession. If I were to go to that point and go, hey, I'm you from the future, and I just want to let you know that this relationship that you are now in will not work. I am 27, turning 28 in 2 weeks, and I'm single. And you may be happy, but it won't work. I think that past me would react in one of 2 ways. I would either immediately go into denial and say, time machines aren't real, this is just a vision. The feeling that I feel for this person is so powerful that there's no way that I wouldn't fight for this. There's no way that I wouldn't give it my all, be super patient, and make sure that this works. Like, obviously, if a relationship failed, it just failed due to lack of effort. Like, I just wasn't putting in enough. I just wasn't trying hard enough. When in reality, that's not true. Love is not compatibility. And that's the big C word that I've been holding on to and waiting to get into. And that's kind of going to be like the second part of this. But love is just an emotion. It's no different than irritation or sadness, guilt, shame, bliss, anger. All of these things are emotions. Love is one of those. It's just, in my opinion, probably the strongest one. And if you have a strong sense of emotional maturity, you can recognize that decisions in life should never be made off of emotion. I know a lot of people love to pretend like their emotions are fate speaking to them or manifestation materializing right before their eyes, or they have this really good gut intuition. But at the end of the day, if you make a decision off emotion and you were right by chance. You were not right because your emotions strayed you correctly. Now, granted, intuition and gut feelings are a really vague term. I get intuition, I have gut feelings, but they're not guided by how like amped up I am or how like full of love I am. They're my subconscious and all of the data it's collected over the years speaking to me in a whisper vaguely, and I'm kind of getting the idea. But I mean, each time I have fallen in love, I have envisioned the wedding day. I have envisioned the ring. I have envisioned the house with the white picket fence, the family and dog, all of it. I wasn't not committed. I wasn't not trying hard enough. I was just in love. And that's all it was. And don't get me wrong. All of this is to say that I would not go back and change anything. I think everyone should experience what it's like to be in love, even if it doesn't work out. Even if you die from some horrible accident young and you weren't in a relationship or with a person at the time, if you got to experience what love is like, then it was worth it. It was even worth the heartbreak. Now here comes the big asterisk on that, which is not every time you fall in love is worth it. I say this now because I am grateful to have experienced love at all, but that does not mean that you should then fall in love every time you get the chance. If you've fallen in love 15 times in your life, you need to figure it out. You need to lock in. You need to go to therapy. You need to untangle whatever mess you got going on upstairs. But if you've never fallen in love before, I know I have listeners who range from 50s and 60s to teenagers. And if you're really young and you have not fallen in love yet, go fucking fall in love. Like, be smart. Don't pick some piece of shit. Pick someone who's nice at the very least. But go fall in love. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And it probably won't work. But it'll be worth it. I gave advice to a really close friend of mine years ago who had never been in love. And she was asking how to know whether a relationship is healthy, how to know whether you're doing it correctly. And I was like, quite honestly, from my own experience, no advice I give you will work. Once you're in love, you are at the whim of love. You are a mere victim. You are under its thumb, and it will take you wherever it wants. You have to go experience it. You have to go get your exposure to love in so that you know who you become when you're in love and when you're in a relationship. You learn your weaknesses and your downfalls and your preferences so that you can come out of that I say come out of it like it's inevitable the relationship is going to end. Statistically, it fucking is. But if you have only been in one relationship and you've made it work, congratulations on being the exception that everyone talks about and the poster child for the ideal love. But for the rest of us, not the case. And so when you inevitably break up with your teenage lover, you will now have a better grasp of who you are and what you need and what you give. And so I don't regret falling in love. I never would, and I never will. It's beautiful. And every time that I go into something, I'm giving it my all. I'm really earnest. I've never gotten into a relationship that I wasn't fully 100% committed in. Things just play out for different reasons. So now I kind of want to dive into what love isn't. It isn't what makes a relationship work. If you are in a bad relationship and someone tells you that you need to leave because they're your friend and they care about you, and you say, but I love them, yeah, that's what got you into this mess in the first place. Love is on this infallible pedestal so often where we can never criticize it. We can never bring it up as if it's some person's religion. It's this thing where if we ever dare say, so what, you're in love, it feels wrong. It feels like you just punched Walt Disney in the gut. But in reality, when you acknowledge it just being an emotion, you might be able to take a step back and recognize, with that emotion out of the picture, how does this person treat you? Is this what you're okay with going through forever? I fucking hope not. And like I said earlier, if love was all you needed, if love was enough, we'd all fall in love once, and then we'd live happily ever after. But clearly, we're very capable of falling in love with people who are not good for us. And so we should swallow that pill, accept that truth, and move forward with that in mind. The thing that makes relationships work is compatibility. Say it with me, class. Compatibility. God, where do I even begin? Staring off into the abyss with a million different ways I can take this, but when you fall in love with someone, the things that you fall in love with are not the things that sustain a relationship. And you eventually will escape that honeymoon phase. You will stop being fucking crazy obsessed with that person. As you should. Because you wouldn't have a social life if you stayed that obsessed. You'd lose all your friends because you'd have no time for them because you'd spend every waking moment with your beautiful lover. But eventually, us humans adapt to everything that we are put in, including love. And the dust settles. And you get used to this person and you find your comfort and your home. And it's a beautiful thing that you earn through time spent in the relationship. But that being said, that's when the real race starts. That's when the sprint actually becomes a marathon. And you recognize that relationships are difficult and require vulnerability and a lot of work and a lot of patience and empathy and forgiveness. And most people aren't born with those things. They have to fucking earn them. They might have them in specific instances and then think that that's how they are all the time, but it's not. You are patient when it's easy to show patience. You are empathetic when it's easy to feel empathy. But who are you when it's hard? Who do you become when you're the one who fucked up? Are you overly defensive? Do you move the goalpost? Do you change the subject? Do you gaslight or completely deny? Or do you swallow your fucking pride, look someone dead in the face and say, I fucked up. Full stop. No but. No, but you did this. No, but I only did this because you say, I fucked up. And I'm really, really sorry. And I hope you forgive me. You will get your opportunity to explain why you fucked up because nobody in their right mind does malicious things to the person that they love. with the few exceptions of the most toxic relationships I've ever seen in my life. But hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're not involved in that. I would, I would really hope. But you may be asking, okay, wise guy, what do you mean by compatibility? This big C word that you're talking about. And this is where I will briefly go to my notes and talk about some of the main things that you need to look for. Because quite frankly, you can't be compatible with anyone if you don't know what you want or who you are or what your preferences are. That's why I say go fall in love. Half of it is learning. And most of that learning is about yourself. And so you need to know where you stand on religion. You need to know where you stand on politics. You need to know where you stand with raising a family, having children, with marriage, with your sex life. You need to know what you want out of your career, or at least have a vague idea. You need to know where you want to live, how you view money, if you want a stay-at-home wife or husband or whatever, or if you want a dual income household. All of these things are so important because if you don't know who you are or what your preferences are, then you don't know who you're compatible with. And since we already established earlier that you can fall in love with anyone, if you fall in love with someone who you're compatible with already, you just got lucky because you didn't know. But if you're able to do a little bit of soul searching, a little bit of introspective thought, you should be able to come out with answers to those things I listed, and maybe some other things that I maybe didn't touch on because I may have different priorities than you. But just to be completely kind of open and vulnerable, my most recent relationship ended while we were still very happy with each other. There was no part of me that didn't want to be with my person still. But of all those things we listed, there was one in particular that we weren't compatible on. We fell in love before checking if we were fully compatible. And we kind of hit a little snag halfway through where we were like, we'll figure it out, as time goes on. And then you start having very serious conversations about moving in with someone or getting married or raising a family. And then you gotta really, really acknowledge whether or not you're compatible. Because if you're not, and you know you're not, fuck acknowledging that you're wasting your own time. You're wasting this beautiful person that you have claimed, that you obviously think is special. You're wasting their time too. Because if you can acknowledge that you're not compatible, and you won't be compatible because it's a non-negotiable for you and for your partner, then you will inevitably split. Or you will grow old, bitter, and resentful over the years and die mad. Pick one, Some heartbreak now, or a lifetime of regret. I'm not here to steer your fucking wheel, but for me, it feels like a pretty straightforward answer. And that being said, it's not easy. I've never experienced an easy breakup. My shortest relationship was 5 months, on the dot. And we were not good for each other. We were fun, but we weren't good for each other. And we don't even talk anymore, which is fine. No ill will, no hate. That was just her preference. But that breakup, which should have been the easiest breakup, it's 5 months, we're not good for each other. I mean, we should just fucking call it. Was still hard. I still cried. I've cried during every breakup. It's just horrible. I need like a month of just like fucking pure isolation after, and that's with proper processing of my emotions and acknowledging the reality of things and all of this stuff. I mean, it's hard. I still have ripple effects of my most recent breakup, and that was fucking God, what month are we in? 5 months ago, coming up on 5 months ago. And I still feel certain things, and that means I still have a little bit to go. I I don't know how personal I want this to get, but we're just kind of rolling with it at this point. I've kind of veered off my notes a little as I expected to, but I am. I know I mentioned one of my relationships, the shortest one. I don't really speak to this person, but my other two, I am still friends with them. Like I still regularly get to hang out with them on special occasions or see them whenever I please. Or I could reach out to either one of them for something right now, and it would be completely fine. And that's the beautiful thing about being a mature adult who had a peaceful and mutually agreed upon breakup. It's like you don't hate the person, you just weren't compatible. If I was cheated on, different story. I probably would never talk to that person, because I've talked to people who are like, I don't understand how you could be friends with your ex. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, what did your ex do? Like, oh, he beat me, or oh, she cheated on me. It's like, yeah, don't be friends with that person. That's a bad person. Like, that's really fucked up. That's a no-brainer. I wouldn't be friends with that person. I, for whatever reason, perhaps luck, just happen to go through amicable breakups. I encourage people to try to do their best to be kind and gentle and empathetic during a breakup, and be kind, gentle, and empathetic to your ex if they never did truly, like, really stab you in the back. If they pissed you off, that's normal. That's a relationship. If you've gotten in bickering fights, that's normal. That's a relationship. If they hurt your feelings sometimes, it's normal. That's a relationship. Don't hate them for that. But if they, like, fucked your homie, sayonara, dude. I get it. And so let me reel it back in a little bit and try and get my bearings a bit. I guess my whole point of recording this is to hope that you, dear listener, can acknowledge that love is not enough. And that's okay. Love is a beautiful thing. I'll be a little honest with you guys, a little vulnerable. I miss it. I miss it a lot. Like, I've only been single for 5 months. I know for some people that's an eternity, and you like to hop in from relationship to relationship. Good luck to you. But I need some time. Like, after my 5-month relationship, I was single for about a year, and I see myself being single for at least a year after this most recent one. And that doesn't mean I don't miss it. Like, love is not enough, but it is fucking beautiful. Once you can acknowledge and just treat it for what it is, which is one of the best experiences you can ever have in life, then you really, really, truly get to appreciate it, in my opinion. It's not on some untouchable pedestal. It's not romanticized, ironically. Love gets romanticized too much, in my opinion. But it's beautiful. It's something that you should never regret. It's something that you should give your all every time. But you should do it with someone who is compatible, is meant for you, is kind to you because they are like you, not forcing you to be someone that you're not, or vice versa, because you fucked up and fell in love with someone who you're not compatible with. That reminds me of a point that I wanted to touch on is I have dodged or avoided falling in love before. Like, I have my relationships that I've been in, but there were moments in between them when I was single where I felt a connection with someone. And not just me, both of us knew that if we continued down this path, we were actually going to fall in love with each other. And so we stopped because it wasn't good timing, or we knew we weren't compatible, or it just wasn't a good idea. For one reason or another, it didn't happen. And I definitely don't regret not falling in love with someone who I could acknowledge before it ever happened that we were destined to fail. And that's just how easy it is to fall in love. Oh my God, dude, if you find someone attractive with great charisma and matches your humor, what else do you need, right? As they say. That's all you need to fall in love. And then, as you see people post on like Twitter and Instagram, uh, you're so funny during the talking stage turns into you don't take shit serious during the relationship stage. And she's so quirky turns into, oh my God, stop making me cringe in front of my friends. There's a multitude of charming things during the blissful, heroin injected talking stage or even beginning of your relationship. There are a ton of things that are no longer charming uh, later in the relationship because you don't understand your compatibility. And I really do think really fleshing out your stance on some of those things I listed, like children, religion, lifestyle, politics, career, money, all of these things, knowing where you stand on those will also, here it comes, help you get icked out by people who aren't good for you. Oh my God. I have rejected or gotten icked out by women who 19-year-old me would have fucking killed to have a shot at. Oh, like, oh, what are you doing, dude? Like what? You'll never get that chance again. Go get her. Like, fuck no, dude. Take a step back, recognize the lack of compatibility, the lack of overlap, and you start going, ugh, I don't really like that person. Um, we may get along great as friends, and I may even find them attractive, and we may even have the same humor. But politically, oh my God, we're so different. Or religiously, we couldn't be further apart. Or you don't want a family and I do. Whatever it may be. These things matter. They are everything if you want to find your forever. And so thankfully, figuring them out for yourself will help you avoid falling in love with the wrong person because it's really easy to do. And I also want to bring up the fact that you're allowed to say to any of those things that you don't care. For instance, I have friends who could not give any less of a fuck about politics. First of all, they're wonderful for that because they're never annoying on that front. But secondly, that's fine to just have no political affiliation or care. You just need to acknowledge that someone who is compatible for you is also going to be someone who's not politically charged. If you're very politically charged, you better find someone in the same fucking boat as you. And you better be empathetic for the little nuances where you don't match up. Because if you can't do that, you'll never be happy. But yeah, nonetheless, these are the things that make up whether your romance is sustainable. I didn't make this episode and I didn't set out to make this episode to shit on love. The idea of it, the concept of it, the beauty of it, the art that it inspires. I adore all of that and will never not be a huge lover and romantic when I get my opportunities. But I'm a realist first, and I want to be happy in the long term. And I really, really, really hope that, because the people who listen to this are, quite frankly, only the people that I care about in the real world. Those of you, you know who you are, who reach out to me and constantly talk to me about what we're doing with this podcast and the conversations that we're having. I care about you. And I care about all of you who also don't reach out, because you even being here means the world to me. And so when I touch on these topics, like, I'm not just speaking into the void, like I'm speaking to my people, quite frankly. And I really want the best for you guys. And I want to be able to use these solo episodes, at least, as an opportunity to hopefully maybe give some good perspective. Maybe say the right thing at the right point in your life to where something clicks and you end off better because of it. If I could do that, my whole fucking day will be made. My whole life will be made. And I'm not omniscient. I'm not all-knowing. I'm not benevolent. I mean, I'm human. I'm flawed. So I can be wrong about things. And if I've come into this with some perspective that maybe doesn't resonate with you, or you feel like I'm objectively incorrect, I'm always open to discussions and would love to be wrong so that I can improve. But yeah, love isn't enough, guys. It's really not. It is the fuel, but it's not the vehicle. It's the sprint, it's not the marathon. It is the icing, but it's not the cake. And of all those little analogies, you can't have just one. You need both. And I really hope that, even speaking generally with society and culturally, we get to a place where we can ever so slightly nudge ourselves to a better idea of what love is. It shouldn't be bastardized, but it shouldn't be untouchable. And I hope that your relationship with yourself continues to improve so that your relationship with love can be as healthy and as pure as possible, so that the next time that you experience love, you will never experience the heartbreak that could follow. But you guys, I think that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope good old episode 25 did something for you. And one final note I wanted to touch on. I know I just wrapped it up beautifully, but I never know how to shut up. I want to put a little asterisk on everything, a little disclaimer. If I said anything that made you realize something terrible about the relationship that you're currently in, I really want to emphasize that just because you may have understood, realized, had an epiphany, or had a reaction about your current relationship, that does not mean that you are now obligated to act on it today or tomorrow. The day that I acknowledged during my first real relationship that I thought that things needed to end was not the day that I ended things. Now, that being said, it wasn't fucking a year later, because again, I don't want to waste this special person's time. But you don't have to fucking try and solve your entire life, fix the problem today. Most of you listening, this isn't even relatable, but I'm just really worried that there may be one person that hears this and is like, holy fuck, I'm not in a relationship for the right reasons. I'm not in love anymore. I am not compatible with my partner. I'm in deep with them. I don't know what to do. And I am here to tell you, you don't need to know what to do right now. You have time to figure it out. You have time to mull it over. You have time to talk to people that you trust and who care about you. And you can be vulnerable and honest with them and acknowledge certain truths out loud. It's going to be okay. And I just needed to say that. For the rest of you, I hope all is well. I hope you experience love, happiness, compatibility, and everything in between. And I am really thankful that you guys listen to these. I'm really thankful that you're here. And I hope that this episode was good. I am attempting to add structure and prep to my routine with this podcast. And I hope that this episode stood out as higher quality, more clarity, and a more rhythmic flow throughout the entire podcast. And if it did, good. If you don't reach out, if you don't tell me anything, but you liked this, great. I'm really happy. And if you would like to tell me or give me some feedback, as I've said a million times on here, I would love that. I would love to hear from you, especially on today's topic. I wrote a whole fucking essay about it before I even put this episode together. So if it's resonated or it's touched your heart in one way or another, please do let me know. That being said, this was Unserious University, episode 25. I'm your host, Tub. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.